Hello everybody, my name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. We're gonna dive right into the malicious compliance stories in just a second, but let me just say that we have a giveaway, so stick around until later on in the video to see how you can enter that. That being said, our first story is by Cuboid-Homonym, Karen Wants Guac. This happened to me about 2 years ago, but a former coworker just reminded me about it and I'm pretty sure it counts as malicious compliance. I'll try and keep it short, but it is a little long. I used to be a service manager at one of the biggest locations of a popular Mexican grill. I won't say which, but guac was $1.95 extra and we were required to ask everyone if they were okay paying that price. One Sunday morning, our second busiest shift of the week, 2 of my line people called out, so we were struggling to get all of our prep done before opening at 11. We are just wrapping up when in comes Karen 10 minutes before opening through the side door marked employees only with 15 preteen girls in tow. My cook recognizes her as she regularly comes in during the dinner shift and is extremely abusive and cruel to all the Latino workers. Karen tells me they can order whatever they want, throws her credit card at me, and goes to sit down at a table and diddle on her phone. Now, I can't ring up her order without her standing there because of the company rules, and I am 30 weeks pregnant and just want to take my break. I prego-waddled over to Karen's table to try and inform her of that when she literally flicks her hand at me to dismiss me. Not only have I been at the store since 7 and done 2 different people's jobs on top of my own, I have my son's head grinding against my pelvic bones and kicking me like crazy. I am in no mood. When I try to tell her again, she looks at me with what I can only describe as seething contempt and says, "What part of they can get whatever they want did you not understand? I don't care what you charge me as long as I get a receipt. Don't interrupt me again or I'll get your fat butt fired." Now, I never cry, but that almost got me. Motherhood is awesome, but pregnancy sucks. I finally managed to pick my jaw off the ground and stammer, "All right, ma'am, I'll ring up whatever they want and bring you a receipt." The girls were really nice and most of them ordered double meat and they all got a bottled water and chips and guac. Every last one. My cashier and I are just vibrating with glee as we ring them up and watch the bill climb to like $250. I brought the bill to Karen and was pretty excited when she didn't immediately check it. I made my own food and told the cook to come get me when the show starts. I'm halfway done eating when I see him waving to the camera, howling with laughter, so I head up. Karen is foaming at the mouth, screaming for the manager, and when she sees that the manager is me, she literally grinds her teeth and slaps her receipt on the table. She manages to choke out the word refund. The girls have all pretty much finished their food, so I inform her that I won't be doing that because I would lose my job for giving away that much critical inventory, meat, guac, cheese, for free. Then I gently remind her that she told me twice that they could get anything as long as she got a receipt. She just keeps demanding a refund and calling me stupid and fat. Again, pregnant. At this point, her screaming is holding up the very long line and customers are shouting at her to just leave. That's when she pushed me. Freaking hard. My cashier caught me so I didn't fall down, but 2 of our regulars who are police see it and immediately cuff her. In this state, any use of physical force against a pregnant woman is classified as aggravated battery or something like that. I felt bad for the kids and I was fine, so I kept telling them I didn't want to press charges, but they said at that point it didn't matter because the woman had done it in front of on-duty officers, so she was getting arrested. They had to call the kids' parents to come get them because she was their church's youth leader and get statements. My general manager came in and let me go home with a full day's pay. She tried to take the case to trial, but they had video and like 20 witness statements, so she ended up taking a couple years probation or something. All because I did exactly what she told me to. Honestly, if a Karen came in and they were all snotty like this and dismissive and calling you fat and whatnot, I'd probably go back to those 15 preteen girls and I'd start lobbying all kinds of desserts and extra things that you could get extra charges for. Don't stop at $250, see how high you can tally it. Anybody with me on that? Let me know in the comment section down below. Our next story is by SGY003. Don't like my new policy? Take it up to my dad, the CEO. Okay, let's dance. Not my story, but something that happened with my uncle during the early 2000s in South Korea. So my uncle was in an upper division head position for the company he was working for. He practically did most of the heavy lifting, so he was considered a valuable asset to the company. Everyone loved him, he had a wife and a then grade school son, aka my cousin, and was paid well. What everyone loved about him the most was that he tried to get along with everyone in the building. And I mean everyone. To the interns who just started, to the ladies at the front desk, and even all the way to the janitorial ladies. He always made sure to greet and chat with them, and always made them feel like they belonged. Trust me, this is important later. In came Mi Jin, a 25 years old woman who was the new staff to join the company. Right off the bat, she was placed a few ranks above my uncle. He was rather annoyed that a younger person was giving him orders, but he had a family to take care of, so he decided to play along. At first, Mi Jin wasn't all that bad. She finished with masters in business and had plenty of internship experience in the US, so her skills and tactics helped the company quite a lot. My uncle began to like her. Until she dropped the bombshell of a policy. Apparently, she didn't like the fact that the office workers were sharing the lunch cafeteria with the janitorial staffs. So she made a new policy that janitors aren't allowed lunch. She didn't mean they couldn't use the cafeteria, she was literally taking away their lunch break. She ordered my uncle to be the one to break the news. My uncle did not like this, so he contested every time she was bringing this up. It finally got to the point where she revealed how she had the audacity to make such a policy. She revealed herself to be the daughter of the CEO of the company, and she said, as my uncle quoted, "If you don't like my new policy, then take it out to my dad, the CEO. I can ruin your life in an instant. This is just a taste of what's to come once I inherit the company and become the new CEO." This is when he had enough and began to meticulously plan her downfall. He first told the new policy to janitor staff, and they were pissed. He assured them that he will set this straight and told them all they had to do was make their voices heard and gave them a few ideas. For the next few days, they went on a strike, letting everyone know how they are underpaid and starved while working there. My uncle admitted that the strike released all the built-up frustration, and the things that came out of the janitor crew were a bit more than he asked for. Some he wasn't even aware of and was shocked to hear about. Mistreatment that was going on behind his back. Office folks leaving too much of a mess everywhere, underpay, physical pains, long hours, etc. Granted, few of them my uncle was aware of, but not to the extent the janitor team described as. The CEO got involved and put a lot of effort into negotiating and calming them down before the Korean version of the Department of Labor got involved with the lawsuit. He promised that they would be treated better and paid better. When the dust settled, he demanded to know who was the one that implemented the policy in the first place. Mi Jin tried to coerce my uncle to take the fall, but he complied with what she had said and took it to the CEO. He showed the new policy document signed by her, which even included the part about terminating anyone who spoke against the policy. Now, the CEO was pissed and was originally planning to fire his daughter. Apparently, he knew about her entitled nature for a very long time, but never expected to impact so many people. Mi Jin begged to stay, and the CEO allowed her to do so, at the cost of demotion from her current role. Which role was she moved to, you may ask? She was moved to the trainee position of the janitorial team. And the CEO even said to them, "Oh, please don't go easy on her. Be strict on her first day." She quit a mere week of her new role. Oh, how the turntables, Mijin. I'm just glad this case of nepotism where the daughter was working in a place that the father owned didn't end up being some situation where the father turns a blind eye to her terrible management and lack of respect for anybody working for the company. Although, I don't know how much of a choice the CEO had, considering the Korean Department of Labor was pretty close to shutting the whole thing down. I just kind of wish that the daughter had to be a janitor a little bit longer than just a mere week. And our next story is by fredzred. Customer accused me of overcharging her. She paid full price. This happened many years ago when I worked at Target. I was 17. Whenever the store would get in new stock, a lot of the time some of the older stock would be put on clearance to make room for new stock on the shelves. This was one such occasion. A new brand of women's clothing had just been introduced, so some of the stock was discounted down about $10 to $15. I was working on the register that day and had discounted a few items by this point. Most of the time, the discounted price wouldn't scan, so I would have to change the price on the computer. My first customers after my lunch break was a Karen. Oh, goody. She had mostly clothing, and a few of them were the discounted ones. I knew which ones were the old stock. The first item scanned at the discounted price, but the second one didn't. The discount sticker had been half peeled off. So I canceled the transaction, changed the pricing, and then scanned it again to make it scan at the discounted price. No big deal. Wrong.
Excuse me? Why are you scanning that twice? I'm only buying one. You're overcharging me.
No ma'am, you're only paying for the one. It didn't scan at the discounted rate, so I was cut off. Karen, not listening to me.
No, you will cancel that and give it to me at the price it said on the tag.
Was she stupid or just in an argumentative mood? Are you sure, ma'am?
Yes, just do your job.
Yes, ma'am. Instead of paying $15 for the item, she paid $30. I knew I wouldn't get in trouble because accidents happen, but I was just doing my job. Yeah, I think this is a definite Karen quality bubbling to the surface here. I guess sometimes they see things happening, they get this narrative in their head of, you're trying to screw me over somehow, and then they go full bull seeing red. I can't focus on anything else besides how you're trying to disjustice me right now. Is disjustice even a word? Probably not, but I'm an angry Karen, so of course it is a word. Give me the price on the tag. How dare you try to get a discounted rate? Angry Karen time over. On to our next story by AlfalfaFloozy. Lady demands to speak to an American. Never says what language she wants. Some background. I'm an American that was born and raised in the South. It's an obvious dialect. Also, English is a second language for most people here. Language barriers are not uncommon. All of this comes into the revenge. Years ago, I worked in a call center. It was a large company with English and Spanish departments. I worked in the English department but sat next to our Spanish department. I handled billing. No one calls billing in a good mood, but in general they're angry with the company, not the rep. You calm them down, you fix the issue, and you're off to the next call. Few customers are memorable, but this one I will never forget and I still laugh. This call happened on a busy day with long wait times. This just made the revenge sweeter. The call went like this. Thank you for calling blah blah blah.
I want an American on the phone.
What?
I said I want an American on the phone.
Ma'am, I'm an American.
I want an American on the phone.
At this point, I can only assume I'm not speaking the right language. Uno momento, por favor. I put her on hold, transfer her over to the Spanish line, and just giggled to myself. But it didn't end there. The lines were starting to calm down and I was chatting with one of the Spanish reps when his desk mate pops up and says she's got a psycho on the phone. It was the woman I had transferred. She was going ballistic. The Spanish rep had her on mute while talking to us. I apologized and told her what happened. She started laughing, then looks right at me and said, I'm gonna put her back in the Spanish queue. The Spanish department had a blast laughing at this crazy witch as they kept putting her back in the queue. I don't know if she ever got her issue fixed. Then again, we never found out what the issue was either. She was too busy yelling at everyone. Moral of the story, be nice to phone reps. To piggyback on the moral of the story at the end of the story by OP, a lot of call center workers are underpaid, they work hours that can be frustrating, they deal with a lot of angry people for no good reason, and in most situations they're not the reason you have an issue. So at least personally, I try to be as decent of a human as I could be with phone call centers. Plus, I think if you're respectful, if that call center person has any kind of privileges to give any kind of special deals to any limited amount of people, you're probably very likely to get it because it's almost disheartening to think about how many people aren't just respectful or at least try to be respectful during these calls. Our next story is written by SexyRabbits. The forklift will be here in a few minutes, but fine, go ahead. Around 10 years ago, I was a supply specialist in the National Guard. I was pretty organized and detail-oriented, so the supply sergeant usually put me in charge of loading up for big movements. The sergeant and I got along great, but he knew I was on the lazy side and would avoid doing unnecessary manual labor. On one of these days, I was almost done with packing up everything the unit needed for annual training. The last thing to do was to get one of these pallets that was full of heavy cots into a shipping container. Even though it only had to be lifted about 6 inches and moved a couple feet, I just didn't think we could safely do it on our own without unloading the cots first. So I called another unit in our battalion that had a forklift and asked them to stop by and help out. While the forklift is on the way, the supply sergeant stops by and notices we're almost done, but myself and 2 coworkers are just sitting around chit-chatting. I told him we couldn't move the pallet and the forklift was on the way anyway. The sergeant decides that I'm just being too lazy or antisocial and goes and grabs a bunch of other soldiers to help lift the pallet. Again, I pipe up that the forklift should be here any minute, but the sergeant has 5 to 6 other buff dudes now to help and tells me to step aside and watch how it's done. To their credit, they did manage to lift the pallet, but then immediately dropped it again because the sergeant tore a muscle in his right arm. The forklift arrived a few minutes later. Work smarter, not harder, right? Bill Gates once said that he would hire a lazy person to do a difficult job because a lazy person will find an easy way to solve the problem. A forklift is coming to lift this heavy thing. Don't strain yourself and tear a muscle, just work smart. So now it's time for info on the giveaway. So if you want to be in with a chance to win a $30 Amazon gift card, all you have to do is comment on any video this week. We will pick a winner from a random video on Sunday night after the last video goes out and announce it on Monday's video. And also feel free to comment on every video from the week to better your chances of winning. And whilst you're at it, why not like the videos too, cause it helps more than you know. Gift card info out of the way, onto our final story of the day by Renlobo. You want it all on the truck? You got it. This is a short one. One day I was working at a box store as an order puller. My shift was almost over. My boss tells me to go load all these special order heavy gauge steel studs that came in onto the delivery truck. I go over to the side of the building and see a massive order of studs. They won't even come close to fitting on our delivery truck. I go back and try to tell him it's too much and will need to be at least 3 separate deliveries. He tells me that I don't know what I'm talking about and to just go load it. So I start to load it. By the time I was done, it was stacked 15 feet above the cab of the truck and the suspension was all the way down. I went inside and punched out for the day. As I walked past the pro desk, I said good luck getting the straps over the truck and left. The next morning, the manager asked me what I was thinking. I explained what happened and he went and yelled at my boss. Then, as per usual, he stormed off like a child and didn't come back for 2 days. Edit: the steel studs are the kind they use to make walls in commercial buildings. They are light, but there was a huge amount of them. In a job like this where an employee handles inventory, especially loading and unloading, if they have a concern, they probably have a legitimate issue. I guess what I'm saying is I think it's just a tad ignorant to just kind of brush that off and tell them, no, it'll fit, just go ahead and do it. I think OP's more than justified to build a wall out of heavy gauge steel studs that the boss has to go deal with afterwards because their shift is over. Do you agree with that? Let me know. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today. If you want to let me know which of these stories I read today was your personal favorite and why, let me know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed the content here, please consider giving the video a like. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. And no matter what you did, whether it was liking, just watching the video, or subscribing, thank you all so much for supporting the Storytime channel. It means a lot to me, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.